of course, but also, Jaclyn, we are tracking storms throughout southern Ontario with humid conditions.
That's exactly right. It's a typical fall-like storm in that it's bringing a lot of that cold Arctic air from the prairies, Rachel, but it's almost tropical in characteristics too because there's a lot of moisture. This is a very moisture-laden system that's expected to drop a lot of rainfall in northwestern Ontario, but it has the humidity attached to it. So we've got warm air advecting into southern Ontario, bringing the temperatures today up to feeling like mid-30s again. So yeah, we go from snow to mid-30s, only in Canada, right? Let's take a look here at our risk map from the Storm Prediction Center. That's with the National Weather Service in the States. They do still have that slight risk, just as yesterday they had for extreme southwestern Ontario. So that means, you know, areas like Lambton County, Essex County, Windsor, Chatham, those regions, we're going to keep a very close eye on you. Not to say that anywhere outside that region won't see some active weather. We actually have our own Chrissy Van standing by in Cambridge right now. How's the temperature feeling, Chrissy? Are we starting to really heat up and, you know, feel summer-like?
As well.
Atta girl, she's prepared. Good work. All right, thanks, Chrissy. And she's right. Those bands of precipitation making their way onshore. We also have a tornado watch issued for parts of Michigan. So will that energy be crossing the border? We'll be keeping a very close eye in that neck of the woods. Stay with us. Storm watch coverage continues here at the Weather Network. It's a Wednesday, and it's a wild Wednesday in terms of our weather. Dr. Doug Gillum said it's the tale of two seasons. We have fall, winter-like conditions out west, and hot and sticky conditions in Ontario and the east, seeing some pretty pleasant conditions as well. We'll have a look at your forecast coming up. But I want to dig into the severe weather potential through southwestern Ontario today. Not a whole lot has changed from yesterday's analysis in that the Storm Prediction Center in the States is still calling for that tornadic potential. That's because our dynamics in the atmosphere, our wind profiles, what our winds are doing as we go up higher in the atmosphere, are still looking favorable for tornadic storms. However, the precipitation that's moving in with this storm is really widespread. So sometimes we get enough cloud cover, enough rain, it'll kind of mix out the atmosphere and sort of mess up those chances for convection. So if that happens, it'll be very isolated to extreme southwestern Ontario in terms of those storms that could develop and possibly be rotating. Feeling like 31 degrees in Windsor, feeling like 30 in London, hot and sticky, but this is what I mean. Take a look at this. The best word for it is like a big blob, because it's a lot of rain with embedded thunder showers. Usually when we talk about rotating storms, we have discrete cells that are sort of disconnected. So you'd see one that's kind of off on its lonesome self, and that's the storm that will show rotation. This case, it's going to be difficult to try and get a storm to be rotating, which is great news, but we do have tornado watches in Michigan currently. That's where I'm going to bring in Chrissy Van, who's live in Cambridge. You bet, Chrissy. We just want to make sure all of you are safe and protected. That's our job. So 30 to 50 millimeters of rain possible for northwestern Ontario, but a complete different story out west. It's all about the snowfall. So we think we have it bad with the rain in Ontario. It is heavy snowfall in Calgary. This is the scene that we've been seeing the last 24 hours.
But Jaclyn, the good news is the snow is on its way out, so I'm talking about snow and wind chills, and you and Chrissy are talking about the storm potential and the humidex.
I know, all hands on deck today, because it's a big story both in the west and the east. Today's story in Ontario, potential for another round of active weather. We all remember what Friday was like. Could it be the same? Well, here's the difference. On Friday, we had a lot of daytime heating, we had a lot of clearing and instability, and that fuel, that energy, we call it CAPE, convective available potential energy, fueled a lot of thunderstorms that produced lightning. Today, while you'll see some embedded thunder showers and potential for lightning, certainly, I think the greater threat today will be strong gusty winds, especially as the cold front works its way through later on late this evening. Could see gusts up to about 60 kilometers an hour, sustained winds about 40. So those winds will shift around northwesterly, bringing in cool temperatures tomorrow. But while the system is here, we have a lot of heat and instability with a southeast flow. And notice the rain now really coming into play in Ontario. We have flood advisories, by the way, and a tornado watch in Michigan. And now just crossing the border in the last, say, half hour or so, Chrissy, Windsor looking like getting some heavy rain and probably some lightning and thunder too, but a different kind of setup. A lot of people are calling it tropical, almost feeling tropical outside.
That's
the thing. Thanks a lot, Chrissy, for your analysis out there and the current conditions out there in Cambridge. We also have Mike Arsenault standing by in London this afternoon. Our own storm hunter meteorologist Mark Robinson will be in the Windsor area. But 15 to 30 millimeters is a general rain amount. But then, of course, the embedded thunder showers could produce more. But it's going to feel, once that rain moves in, like that muggy kind of overcast rainy day and some embedded thunder showers. We'll bring you back more on this, plus the snow out west. Don't go away. I think one of my producers put it best this afternoon. She says, it's weird talking about wind chills and humidexes in the same country. Yeah, that's only Canada, right? And if we look to the States, they're seeing a lot of contrast in terms of their air mass types as well. If you go to places like Montana versus an area like Michigan, very different conditions as well. Montana being much cooler. We'll show you how much cool air is locked up in the upper Midwest of the States and Canada. And then all this muggy sort of tropical-like air mass moving into the east, including you in the Maritimes. So you'll get into a warm-up over the next few days as well. Temperatures today for Ontario feeling like the mid-30s again. Could it be the last time that we're talking about humidexes this, this season? Quite possibly as we get into our fall season. But this storm that's moving in, and it's affecting the United States mainly right now, we are talking about cool temperatures clashing with that warm Gulf of Mexico moist kind of air mass. So it's a very almost fall-like type of storm with that what we call baroclinicity, or that change in air mass types. Here's the thing though, the bigger story, while there is a tornadic threat for sure down towards the stateside today, and even a chance through extreme southwestern Ontario, the bigger story seems to be those winds that are wrapping around behind the cold front, which could mix down to the surface. We could be talking about wind gusts around 60 kilometers per hour when that cold front works its way through. In addition to that, a whole bunch of rainfall with the system out ahead of the front and some embedded thunder showers. So again, that isolated severe potential will stay down through the extreme southwestern parts of the province. Not to say you couldn't get a severe thunderstorm elsewhere, but that's where we're really keeping a close eye on things. 31 degrees in Windsor is what it's feeling like this afternoon. That is the target for our own severe storm chaser, Mark Robinson, meteorologist as well. Here he is with the latest where he's going next. All right, thanks a lot, Mark. You know that rainfall that he's talking about, and I also mentioned big blob is the only word I can think of. Big blob of rain right through the better part of the province, and those embedded thunder showers. By the way, parts of Michigan on the east side has already seen 30 to 40 millimeters, so it'll be interesting to see what Windsor might be reporting after this first dose of rainfall. But it's all about rain here. It's all about snow. As you know, if you live out west, this has been the scene on Calgary streets, with some areas picking up almost 20 centimeters, Rachel. Well, depending on where you live in southwestern Ontario, rain could be at your front door, or at least knocking on your front door. It looks like the timing for the GTA will be in the next few hours, hour and a half maybe, for the heavy rain. And that's really the theme of today's storms. We have what we call the thermodynamics for thunderstorms. So that's the heat and the instability. It's very warm out there. But we have the upper level dynamics, the wind that we need to get storms to possibly be rotating today. And that's what's different about today than Friday. We didn't really have those wind dynamics to really be favorable for tornadic activity. So hence the fact that the National Weather Service already has a tornado watch in place for parts of Michigan. Now, these storms are tracking over the border. The slight risk put out by the Storm Prediction Center, that was in place yesterday, still in place today. The extreme parts of southwestern Ontario will be the place that we're going to be watching really closely today for the potential for rotating storms. Other than that, everyone's going to see a whole bunch of rain. Look at this. This is the warm front that was positioned through Iowa yesterday. That's where the tornadoes were, at least the tornado warnings. Look at all of this rain that the model's picking up on out ahead of the cold front. This is now overnight, and that's when the front's going to pass through. And behind that front, we're expecting some very strong winds aloft to mix down to the surface. In fact, I was told that by tomorrow, we could actually have possible lake effect, not snow, don't worry, I won't go there, but rain, lake effect rain. So we only get that in the fall types of setups. In the winter, of course, we get the lake effect snow. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Plus, we'll talk about the future radar and when you could actually see the rain that's coming up. But first, I want to go live to Mike Arsenault, who's in London, Ontario. You look like you're ready for a hurricane.
That's all for now, Jaclyn. Back inside to you.
All right. You are geared right up for the storm. It's good to see Mike. And we have Mark Robinson, who's also standing by, going to the Windsor area to chase the storms. And Chrissy Van as well, who's in Cambridge. So we'll keep you updated as this day unfolds. But I think what you just saw, Mike, getting a downpour on him is going to be the theme of the day. Talk a little bit about when all of this wraps up for Ontario and when this wraps up. Rachel.
It's okay, less than 5 centimeters. But Jaclyn, I'm sure a lot of people in Ontario are thinking, 5 centimeters of snow? What? That's crazy.
Robinson, doing some hits for us in Ontario in a T-shirt, and then you see Deb and Margot bundled right up, and they look like snow women, not snowmen, snow women. All right. Let's talk a little bit about this storm. Tropical-like storm in Ontario. The reason we say that, it was actually Chris Scott's quote earlier today when he was briefing us. A lot of moisture-laden storm. We've got a lot of moisture coming up from the Gulf of Mexico, and we have what we call warm air advection out ahead of the storm. That's pumping up those temperatures. See a southeast flow behind the front. This is our cloud tops right now. Warm air moving into the region, doing things like this to the temperature. So what a contrast when we think about out west to what we're seeing here. Feeling like 36 degrees. Mike Arsenault is in London right now. Mike, it's hot out. I know the last time we talked to you, it was a downpour. What can you tell us about what you're seeing now?
Jaclyn?
That's right, Mike. In fact, the chance of flooding is there today. Michigan's already seen 30 to 40 millimeters of rain, plus the tornado watch that's in place. So it's an active weather day. You can see embedded thunder showers coming up here as this system gets a little bit closer to home. GTA timing should be here in the next couple hours. Don't go away. Lots more.
CA, the most
so glad
cars
you can spend
in
some time
one
with
place.
us midweek here, and it's another
Autotrader.ca.
wild Wednesday. We were talking about Tornado Tuesdays. It's a wild, wacky weather Wednesday all across the country. It's snow, it's humidex warnings, it's all these different things going on, and only in Canada. By the way, the snowfall warning has ended for the city of Calgary. Rachel Schutzen is standing by to talk to you about that weather story, and it's a wintry one. Let's talk a little more summer, though, shall we? We have humidex values in and around the mid-30s today for extreme southern Ontario. So that in conjunction with the heavy rain, it's almost like a tropical kind of air mass that's grabbing a hold of Ontario and really through the Great Lakes in general. Tornado potential. You see that tornado and you say, okay, what's the deal? Well, this is put out by the Storm Prediction Center in the States. This is a slight risk, and included in that is southwestern Ontario. Not going to rule out the chance of a tornado if we had an isolated storm that could potentially be rotating. That's because our winds are set up in a way today that we could see rotating storms. But what will sort of squash that chance is the fact that a lot of our precipitation is kind of like a big mass on the radar. So nothing's discrete and isolated, and that's how you get a tornado, is on a discrete isolated cell. Isolated severe storms possible, but the better chance of that widespread rain, windy conditions, and there's that tropical air mass I'm talking about. Currently feeling like 32 degrees in Windsor and feeling about the same, about 29 degrees in London. That's where we find Mark Arsenault. If that sun comes out, does its job in a clearing, then we can really get that instability to set up. We can get those, sort of not pop up, but those separated cells. But you see what I mean? The only way to describe this is a big blob of rain. This low pressure system, as you can see, there's the kind of comma shape to it. Heavy rain, embedded thunder showers, likely some lightning, some thunder, of course, but really it's a rain story and a wind story. As this front passes in the overnight, we could be seeing wind gusts in excess of about 60 kilometers per hour. So it's going to be windy and it's going to be rainy. And we have rainfall warnings up toward the north, Kapuskasing, Wawa, Marathon. But good news, the snowfall warning in Calgary has ended. That's got to be a sign of good things to come, Rachel?
Yes, absolutely.